So what we have here is the front bumper camera fits right here, and this is for the 2020 M5 Competition. And because he's getting an advanced wrap, all of these bits come off, and then we're going to have this edge wrapped, this edge through here wrapped, the cap wrapped, this side wrapped. Doesn't really make sense to try to wrap inside the camera area right here. What this is going to get is I'm just going to trim it right along that edge. The way I'm starting is I'm notching out where I know it's not going to be practical to wrap. For instance, you can see it originally was just like so. It's already trimmed there out, there down. And you can see what I'm starting to do here at this spot. And all I'm doing is etching top of the film. So you can see I'm just riding the top. Now where I'm over the edge and it doesn't matter, I can punch through. And then that film's going to, now that I've notched it, that film's going to tear right along that edge. Just like so. And this it, well, let's go and take it back. The idea for a section like this is to not trim over the edge here. It does not make sense to attempt to wrap that any further. First of all, this is the forward-facing section, kind of like from here out. So to try to cap and wrap over there is really just to create problems with potentially coming loose. And there we have the fit and finish. This is a blemish under the film. I don't know if that's picking up or not, but it is a blemish under the film. So what I'm going to do now, let's get a little, I was actually using my heat gun a moment ago. That's why I had that on. Now I'm going to do the same thing through here. I'm going to go ahead and know where I'm notching to. In this case, I'm going to start here, pop out, trim through here, pop out. Then I'll do the same on this side. So I have the fewest points where I start a cut, and then I have to match it up, because with paint protection film in particular, because you're just etching that film, and it can be such a challenge to perfectly match up where you last left it off. It really is one of those things where the precision required is much more than you would believe it would be. Again, I'm riding on the top of the film. As you can see, I haven't gone through, but over here, I'm cool with going on through. Just like that. Flip it around, and I'm gonna do what I can to see the spot that I had etched the film. And I believe I have found it right here. I normally can just do this at whatever angle works for me, but I'm attempting to show you, and so I don't have that luxury. Again, I'm riding on the top just as if it were over paint, and then I can punch through. Now I can go ahead and begin to pull this back. But what I'm going to run into quickly is, if I want to keep this as it is installed, I need to do the same here, and then it needs to happen simultaneously. When this center section is removed, I need to remove that simultaneously, not one side and then come back And so, I'm going to do this against the table. Maybe this will help you see it a little better. Any further for now. Again, you can see this is a great example. I'm not punching through the film yet. Then I'm safe too right there. Right. See if she plays nicely. I think she will. There we go. Now, as it starts coming back together, if I keep pulling like this, it's actually going to start pulling outward, and it causes the film that's good that I want to have remain on this side and on this side, it's going to start it to tear more than, I mean, technically it's tearing to this point, but it gets a bit more ragged. So now that I'm at this point, I can either choose to jump to this side and come back this direction, or I can be selective in taking one side, running it to this point, and then the other side. Now that's what I like to do, because these points right here on this side is where I started, and then I came back and matched. That leaves me with the smallest opportunity to jump off of my etched mark if I go back to that point versus trying to tear across it. There we go. Just like this. Now, because I want to wrap down into these areas, the trick is to trim the film to the correct length that it gets wrapped and not have to touch it again. A lot of PPF installers believe that they want to have the most film wrap and then trim. The problem with that is that excess material, it tends to either introduce unneeded stretch or unneeded compression. And in either case, it's not good for that wrapped edge to remain when you ask more than is absolutely necessary. So what I will do is I'm going to create a stick. I'm going to make the film stick to this edge so that instead of holding it and trimming as I go, I can just drag it along this edge, trim through, and then tear back. And that should give me a cleaner line. This top corner is misbehaving just a little, so I'm going to give it a little bit of extra wrap here. Now I can go through and watch what happens. just like that. You can see how it's starting to come together here. And I'm going to do the same for this side. Now if I were to punch through anywhere here, as long as I firmly hold the knife and I'm not jamming it in there, I'm not going to touch the paint. But when I get to the end, and you notice I'm not lifting, it's vital to go through right at the end. Otherwise you can have a hard time matching back up to that etched point. And then when you do notch it, you can end up, it's very easy to tear inward towards the part you want to keep. And there's some other things I'll do to this before it goes back onto the car, but this will be the initial treatment for it. Alright, so here's another example of where we're not going to be able to, in a practical way, this car is going to South Carolina. It's about a 5-6 hour drive away. So there's a point where I have to, even with an advanced wrap, I have to make a judgment call as far as we don't want to take any undue risk that causes stuff to pop loose and it doesn't really present any real value to the client for us to go over the top with a wrap style. So what I'm going to do here, let me decide how I want to do this so I can trim up. The main thing is I don't want it to be like a non-reliefed wrap, kind of like, say we take that film and then go around this and then around this. Can do it to a very small degree, but it's such a minute thing that I don't mean to say like it's not important in a flippant way, but more in a technical way, it's not important. So what I want to do here is I'm going to trim it just like so. And I'm lifting it away, notching through. Same thing every time. We don't notch through where we're going to touch paint. You can see it's only at the tip where it's notched. Behave, behave. There we go. And then we'll do the same on this side. The notch is going to start right at the top edge of that roll where it rolls out. Notch through. This one played a little nicer for me. There we go. Now, I've got to get a little fancy with this one. I'm going to take it to here, trim back, punch through. Peel this back right there. And because of where it is, I don't want it to be like two straight edges coming together at a sharp point. I want this top corner I'm sorry, that's actually the bottom corner. I want it to be a little rounded. It's going to age better. I'm sorry if you can't see this on the camera, but me getting this right is a little more important than you seeing it perfectly. Bingo. You can see here how that top edge on this part is rounded. And that's more important than one would think to get it done that way. And we'll do the same thing here. Now, at this point, should be able to cap this off. Cap that off, and let's get rid of the excess. In this case, I'm hopeful that I can give it enough tension. There we go. Without having to, in this case, I can't notch through the end because it's laying down. As you can see here, the film's all laying down. So I don't want to notch through in that case. Bingo. Gonna do the same thing here. This bottom corner can be straight, the top one we want to round it off, and because I'm ending in the rounded, I can just in one seamless move hopefully make this behave. No notch through on that side, but can lift it back. Let's find the etched spot right there. And there it is. There's a little bit more to do on it to get it totally ready. Before, in this case, it's going to get Modesta BC05. And, but before it gets BC05, there's a couple more things I need to do. We'll get the BC05 and then be installed. And even when the owner is washing it himself, he's gonna have a hard time finding that film. Thanks for watching.